Well, thank you so much for talking to us today. Now, I know you're not going to announce that you're running for U.S. Senate, but what expertise do you bring to the race that your competitors don't?
Well, let me just simply talk about myself, because obviously I don't know who the competitors are, and it's sort of my own way of doing things is that it's probably more important for me to focus on telling my story. You know, I've had a broad opportunity to be engaged in a range of issues, from law enforcement as an assistant DA and a federal prosecutor, to education as an assistant secretary of the Department of Education, to energy, currently what I'm doing now, to being engaged in the private sector as a practicing lawyer, a general counsel, small telecommunication firm. And so I've had a broad range of issues, a broad opportunity to be engaged in a broad range of issues. And then I've also been engaged here at home in sort of the political process. As I said to someone earlier today, back in 1995, one of the original board members of Texas Christian Coalition, the general counsel of the Republican Party of Texas, the platform committee chairman, as well as the the chairman of the convention. So I've had a lot of opportunity being involved in a lot of issues.
All right. Well, now, one potential candidate for the Senate race holds a major fundraising advantage over the other potential candidates, including yourself. How do you plan to beat him?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure who we're talking about, but here's what we have to do. Fundraising, I think, is a consequence of message. And what we need to do is to make sure that folks understand that this is a candidate here who's a consistent conservative, got the courage to go to Washington, stand up to the Washington establishment, and who can rally Americans around the next generation of conservative ideas and principles. And there are voters out there who are also donors. Some are going to be small dollar donors, some will be large dollar donors, who will, I think, gravitate to that message. And so what we need to do is to make sure that they hear the message. And I think people will support someone financially with that shares their values.
All right. Well, the Democrats seem to be gathering around one candidate, former comptroller John Sharp, who's already won the
and railroad commissioner.
Yeah, well, is there a risk that with so many candidates on the Republican side that the Democrats, who have already settled on Sharp, could come together and win this seat?
Well, I think what's going to happen, I mean, this is not going to be a special election as we thought it might have been a year ago. We're going to go through the normal process. So between now and March of 2012, Republicans, whether we have 6 in the race or 10 in the race, will whittle down to just 1. And then that 1 will run against whomever that Democrat is. We will continue to be the party that more greatly expresses and more closely expresses the views and the aspirations and the hopes and the dreams of Texans. And I suspect that the voting advantage that we've had for the last 2 decades will continue on November of 2012.
All right. Now, you've been particularly vocal about Texas's battle with the Obama EPA over emissions permitting. Where are we on that?
Well, I think there are a number of different lanes that we're going down. Obviously, the Attorney General is going down one lane as it relates to the EPA greenhouse gas emissions rules. The Commission, we're involved in another lane with regards to EPA's determination that one of our natural gas producers fouled the water up in the Barnett Shale, which I think is an example of severe overreach by the federal government, because it looks as if at this moment, and we happen to be giving the EPA an opportunity today to lay out its case as to whether or not that happened. I suspect the EPA did not show up in order to do that. But so it looks from the evidence that's in front of us now that the EPA sort of made that determination, made that announcement, but the facts don't bear it out.
So then as Senator, what can you promise Texans that you'll do about that?
Well, I think, Senator, you're actually seeing the House, the U.S. House and the Senate actually do some things right now. You know, hold a hearing to have the EPA come in and prove why it hasn't overreached and why what it's done is within its own, the province given to it. But you can also defund agencies that are not acting in accord to what the Congress, the powers that the Congress has given them, and overreaching. So there are a range of things. You can change their authorization for those commissions. You can change the appropriations for those agencies.
All right. Well, I know you recently visited China, and China's premier is in Washington this week. How do you view the Texas-China relationship?
We went over, and I was invited to be part of a group of 30 people, some electeds and some in the private nonprofit array. so that we could see what we had been told was all of the great things that China was doing in terms of clean energy. And there's no doubt that there's some assets that the Chinese have. They have 1.3 billion people. They have today a great deal of money, and they have a sense of national purpose. And they can put that to bear to build a bullet train that can go 200 miles an hour. They can put that to bear to build new airports in Beijing and Shanghai for the Olympic Games. But right now, by using incentives and the market, we in Texas are poised to lead not only the country, but the nation in a common sense market way to control CO2. And I say that as someone who doesn't believe in global warming. But we believe that CO2 is a commodity. It is not a waste. It's not a pollutant. And there are ways that you can use CO2. I was surprised that when we were there, here in Texas, we've been using CO2 for enhanced oil recovery for the better part of the last 40 years. About 200,000 barrels of crude today is produced in Texas using CO2 for enhanced oil recovery. The Chinese have fields where they can use CO2 for CO2 floods, but they're not capturing the CO2 anywhere. We got CO2 running through pipes in Texas, and I was just flabbergasted that the Chinese aren't doing that.
All right. Well, thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
talking to us,
My
and
pleasure.
good luck with your race.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.